Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Videre University's Happy Health Hour. And with me, our normal two guests, Dr. P and Dr. M. Dr. M, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Dr. P, are you equally wonderful?
Never equally, but relatively slightly less wonderful.
You're slightly less wonderful than Dr. M. Okay, Dr. M, is that the way it should be?
I don't think so.
No.
I think we should be equally wonderful.
We should be equal. Look, why don't we do the podcast and then we'll circle back to why Dr. P is not as wonderful as he should be.
No,
Should
I think we should resolve this first before the podcast.
Okay, Dr. P, you're going to find yourself under the floorboards again if you're not careful. When Nurse Linda comes back, Dr. M and Linda may put you under the floorboards again. So let's just do the podcast. Let's be professional and let's move on with the podcast. Should we do that?
Yes, I suppose.
Okay.
Under protest.
Under protest. Well, we've got another riveting show this week. We're going to be talking about fast foods and ultra processed foods. Dr. M, let me start with you. What's the difference between fast foods and ultra processed food? What is the difference?
Well, it's not an easy answer in the amount of time that we have, but fast food, convenient food, it doesn't necessarily have to be unhealthy, because we can, go into the ultra processed, which implies, just by virtue of the name, that we're going into the unhealthy. So fast foods are generally associated with unhealthy foods, but it goes back a long way. Fast foods have been really around since ancient times. So there was a time in Rome and Greece and all that where they ate fast foods, if you will. They went and they had a place to go to get some healthy food. There were no added preservatives, chemicals, colors, dyes, whatever. But it goes back a long way. They really knew that it was a necessity. You went out of your house, you got hungry, you needed a place to go to get a fast food. So fast foods, however, as they apply to now and the current modern age, are really those which imply, more just added chemicals, not real food, i.e. the burger joints, the fast food joints.
That's what I think. When I think of fast food, I think of those, right?
So then we get it, it kind of just falls right into the ultra processed, because now the foods, starting back in the day, back in the 1970s, we really started with the whole modern fast foods. And it started with certain companies, and if I may mention them, I would say something that was started with a little square hamburger and in the shape of a big white building, started back in the 1920s in United States. And that took off. And then fast forward to the 1950s or so, there was another big company that came with very interesting shaped things and designs, with these now rounder things in the middle of breads and so on. So, there's a lot that was started back then, and it has really taken off. And not only has it taken off, it's become a very big problem, because these ultra processed foods, which they are really now, they have so many added things that they didn't have before. Even back then, they were not ultra processed, but ultra means that they have been added to. There's a lot of these fillers, emulsifiers, chemicals that make them if you will, more exciting and have you addicted to them. So ultra
So,
processed foods are very much part of the fast food industry.
so am I right in thinking, just reading between the lines about what you just said, um, ultra processed foods today are worse than even 20 years ago?
Yeah, well, 20 years ago there was lesser. There's
There was
more now.
less,
There's
there's
more
less,
lesser chemicals,
wow,
lesser
okay,
additions to. Yes. So in the beginning, there were base. It was your basic meat on the basic potato and the basic stuff. Now there's a whole lot more to it. It's
okay.
not just those ingredients. There are many ingredients.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Dr. P, can we, because if that's the case over the last 25, 30 years, and over the same time period, we've seen obesity, the rise in obesity,
Exactly.
is ultra processed foods really the main cause of this massive rise in obesity?
So that's a question that opens up Pandora's box.
Okay.
Remember, food is the new geopolitics. Food is the new weapon. And if you haven't noticed it, with the soya beans that are being bought by China from Brazil, and now they've cut a deal to sell it from the US, and then the manipulation of food that we have started. And when Dr. Maria says ultra processed, I would say add to that, it's not just ultra processed, it's what we have done to the fundamental nature of the food by modifying it structurally and genetically and
Mm,
functionally. So there are two aspects to it. Now, it may not be ultra processed because technically you are growing it in the fields, but you have modified it. We do not know yet what the side effects of that would be. Remember, these grains have taken thousands, if not more, years to evolve. We took a long time to absorb
mm,
them. Our bodies are used to it, and now you suddenly change the very construction, the design of the proteins and the genes of the food. So that's something you have to remember. That's not
mm,
necessarily ultra processed, but it has a different kind of processing. Now, ultra processed foods, you have look at the oil, how vegetable oils are being processed. Look at how the meats, dairy, and it's not just the processing of the food, it's the processes of it's the processing of what creates that food. So the chicken, the cows, how they're injected with antibiotics, injected with hormones, how they're treated in an inhumane manner. All those things come open up a very complex situation. Basically, we have become insensitive towards our own nutrition. And I look at this
mm.
once most powerful nation in the world, this hyperpower, what should be the greatest focus of the most powerful nation in the world? The health of its citizens, right? Which means you have to have the best foods, best nutrition, cleanest, and fortunately, the great founders of this nation thought about it. They thought a lot how to keep the resources free and clean. And yet, today, in the name of freedom, we have created some of the worst atrocities. The new colonialism is the colonialism of food and health. If that doesn't surprise you, and if you have not noticed it, please start taking a look at it. I'm going to stop here because so much to say, but I'll throw it back at you and see if you agree with it.
I don't know, but I mean, very compelling. That was a mic drop speech, short soliloquy that you just gave, because everything that you said made complete sense. I don't think that I'm qualified to say that I agree with it, although my instinct, I intuit that you're right, that it's not just about the ultra processing. It's just the processing. It's the way we use processes and the injections. Everything that you said makes complete sense, and it ties in with the obesity epidemic that we were talking about last week. It's got worse over the last 25 years, and so have the food processes. Dr. M, so talk to me about obesity, but the issues that ultra processed foods lead to in terms of obesity, but also can you explain in a little bit more detail, not becoming too theoretical, but a little bit more detail about how the things that both you and Dr. P have described lead to diabetes as well as weight gain, metabolic inflexibility. Talk through the processes that so people can really link their nutrition to their diabetes and their insulin resistance.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't want this to get too depressing, but I'm going to try to just be as truthful as I can about it and not get people crazy. But the obesity issue is something that really came about in those years when the modern fast food started. And they saw it about in the mid 1970s. We started to see a rise in obesity, a very, very exponential rise. And it wasn't just a matter of willpower, which is what the folks were saying, the food manufacturers and so on. It's just your lack of willpower. But that was really disproven, because if all people just started to become larger and larger in that time period in the 1970s and then onward, it just kept going. Everybody didn't have willpower. So that was the scapegoat. Oh, you have no willpower, or the lack of, and people don't know how to control themselves. Well, it was the cleverness of the food manufacturers to really appeal to the senses of humans. Human beings like texture, color. They're if it's colorful, if there's a catchy tune associated with the food, which happened in a number of these fast food type of scenes. You have tunes, catchy tingles, whatever you call them, that brings on the food thought. Texture, if it's crunchy on the outside and soft on the inside, that actually tricks your whole satiety center, your whole feeling of fullness, and that which has you say, okay, I've had enough. You go beyond the satiety. It just keeps going. So your body no longer really senses that it's full with these type of tricks that they use. They use chemistry, they use texture, and various other things to make the food so that you can't not have it and you can't get enough of it. For instance, you pick up a bag of these chippy things or Dorito type things, and that will have a crunch to it, but it has nothing valuable. There's nothing valuable to it. It's got seed oils, it's got some coloring, it's got some emulsifiers, it's got some additives and preservatives that keep it as it is, and to boot, they put it in a plastic container of some sort, or an aluminum container, lining. These are not good for the human body, on top of it all. So what happens, you have this cycling, and it keeps going, and people get more interested and more addicted. This is an addiction because it stimulates brain centers that are saying, I like this, I like this, I like this, the sensory, I like the excitement I get with it. And then, then you're left with a person just gaining weight. The weight gains happen because the body just stores this stuff. It doesn't even know what else to do with it. You can't
Ah,
really,
okay, okay.
do anything with this food. So it
It
becomes
just
one,
sits there. It sits there. It doesn't get used. It doesn't get
it's
used in the bloodstream, in nourishing the organs. It just sits there because there's no value to it.
there's no value. And hence you have a body that starves. It literally
Yeah.
starves of its nutrients because during these processes, whether the food is genetically modified or the food it has chemicals added to it, whatever, you're taking the nutrients out of the food. It's no longer, the person becomes nutrient deplete if they eat this type of food. Again, this has been proven. I mean, the documentaries on this stuff. And you can't believe how people will be just drawn and they don't know how to stop. So you become addicted. And then from the obesity, you have everything else develop. You have a gut that turns really south, and that turns your immune system down, and you become absolutely vulnerable to every disease there is, whether it's an infection, whether it's a cancer. Your brain becomes destroyed in one way or another. Addiction, ADHD, all these other mental disorders that have been put in the DMS-5 and all that. Just, it's all induced by this insanity that comes with the food, which you can't even call it food.
I'm going to come back to this, but Dr. P, I want to change tack. I want to come back. I'm really interested in what you were saying about the politics and the geopolitics of food. Why why is there a political angle to food? Can you explain why people, governments engage in making food and nourishment a political thing? Why do they really? That's a stretch, isn't it, to say that governments want us to become large?
Food is a necessity. If you control a necessity, you control people, you control nations. In the 50s, when India did not have food, who was giving food to India? The US was supplying its surplus wheat to India. It was a source of influence. Good influence, it was a source of influence. India went through its green revolution and white revolution. They got cows from the US, they got cows from Europe because the cows produce more milk in these countries. However, the cows in India produce a certain milk with a certain protein that is better for your health, that does not cause allergies, that does not cause side effects from the milk. But in their desire to produce more, they tried to change their animal husbandry, their entire approach to how the cows were reared. And Indians lost touch with their own dairy products, causing thereby an increase in diseases. Now, if you look at the control of food, this was just an example, and you see it right in front of you. China stopped buying US soybeans. We're talking about billions of dollars. It would buy only from Brazil. What happened when the two presidents met? When President Trump met Xi Jinping, what was one of the very important items they discussed? The
It was
soybeans.
soybean deal. Yeah.
So soy be it. That's the way to approach it. Food is a way of manipulation. Food is a way of control. If you look at today's marketing, how do you think people love soda? Dr. Maria can tell you they hit you with so much sugar in it that they hit your bliss point. It takes you to a point of bliss,
So you buy
and then
more
it
of
goes away.
one. Okay. But
So
why
you keep
don't they?
craving it. So I'll
Okay.
stop here because there's so much to
No,
talk.
no. I don't want you to stop because I have a follow-up question for both of you. But
Now,
I'll start with you. No, Dr. P, let me ask this question. Only,
yes.
only because it's in my head and I don't want to forget it. Why don't they just produce the bliss point with healthy foods then?
You
Is
can't. It's unnatural. It's so you put 12 teaspoonfuls of sugar in
yeah.
one can of soda.
Okay.
Which natural food has it? See, we have also gotten as a species used to these fast recreations,
Mm.
right? Quick, because our life is fast. We have lost touch with the earth. We have lost touch with ourselves. We have lost touch with others, our fellow human beings. So we want a quick return. We have become transactional. Okay, I don't have joy from life. I don't have joy from my friends or from myself. Then let me drink a can of soda and try to recreate that feeling of joy that I get, that I should be getting from other natural things.
But here's what
Also,
I don't understand. Here's what I don't understand. Why is it that our bodies crave these unnatural things rather than the food that we are biologically, evolutionary point of view,
they
we
don't
should favor?
they don't crave it. We have created an artificial necessity. The
Okay.
bodies actually crave healthy things. If you
Of
look
course.
at
Yeah, yeah, of course.
if you look at the deer in the woods behind my house, they'll go around licking the rocks. If you look at our dog, he goes around eating grass and the lemon grass because it has a need for something.
Yeah,
So animals have an intuitive sense. Our bodies have an intuitive sense, but
yeah.
we have become insensitive and we have cut ourselves up from our own body. Maria was talking about the biome. Think about it. The women, the girls, as they are growing up, they eat artificial fats, refined fats. So their bodies have these lipids. Now, when they have babies, the baby's brain is made of those lipids.
Scary
Now,
stuff.
those lipids,
Very
if they are
scary stuff.
not healthy, the new generation is coming with those lipids that are artificial, that have been manipulated. Think about what we are doing to our whole species.
Doctor, very scary stuff, and we'll end the show on a positive note. But I want you to tell the truth, both of you. I think this is super valuable to our listeners. Doctor M, um, is there a possibility that modern, advanced, developed systems of healthcare in advanced nations may not be able to cope with this epidemic of diseases caused by ultra processed foods?
Yes, and by the way, lipids are fats. In case the audience does not know, the modern medical system, in and of itself, needs tremendous help. It is not at its peak of health at all, and as a result, it's not really helping the members of society here or wherever there is the so-called modern conventional medicine practice. I am someone who has looked into the all the natural, the more traditional, the old-fashioned, that which the body is able to accept and handle and get better with. Um, the the rates of obesity in this country are really almost out of control, and they're making use of some of the most what I consider the most dangerous approaches. They're making them available, injectables and so forth, that and surgical procedures that really distort, if not, destroy the natural substance of the human anatomy and physiology. And that in turn leads to brain problems and the whole breakdown of the human being. The answer to this obesity problem is a needle, a knife, some other chemical that you can take, and which has a host of negative effects. And that's a big problem unless these leaders in medicine wake up to the fact that there are other methods and modes that would be in the interest of human beings and in the interest of the human health integrity, so that citizens, that people can function. If they would look to the other forms of therapy and treatment and preventive care, that's like almost like an unheard thing in conventional systems. We need preventive care. And in those countries where there is the allowance for preventive measures, and doctors are allowed to freely use natural means and methods, there's progress. People can be helped. And I'm hopeful that that's all going to be happening more and more here. We're seeing a kind of a renaissance. There's a lot of natural stuff happening now. A lot of integrative practices are happening, and naturopaths are coming forward. So we're going to try to do what we have to do for the obesity problem, which then leads to many other problems.
So, Dr. P, I want you to imagine a world, because obviously you're clearly interested in the geopolitics of food, and so am I. So, I want you to imagine a world, a United States or another country where there is negligible intake of ultra processed foods, and therefore obesity is a negligible problem, and therefore, according to everything I've read, but particularly what you two say, then diabetes becomes a negligible problem. I want you to imagine a world in which that's the case. How much money does the health service save in that sort of world, percentage wise?
Depending on the size of the nation, trillions. Now, if the US were to adopt, and it has to come from within. So right now, it may be at an individual level. People will realize they have to live a healthy life. They have diseases. If they have a little sensitivity, if they have a little intelligence, they will pick it up. Some natural intelligence is what I'm talking about. You can be a great technical mind, but you may not have the natural intelligence to respect the systemic and long-lasting functionality of biologic systems, ecobiologic systems, and our body is a beautiful example of multiple such systems carrying on at the same time, not just at a macroscopic level, but at a microscopic level. And that's another discussion someday. But when we eat unhealthy, it affects us at a cellular level. It affects, as Dr. Scunziano will point out, the mitochondrial level. The protein gets damaged, the genes get damaged. We have to be able to respect that. Now, of course, the body regenerates. The body has great wisdom, and it regenerates. It tries to cope with it. Why do you think we are still around? But simple things like hydrogenated foods, like polished grain, like white flour, white sugar, these can be avoided. You can have very tasty food, very wholesome, tasty food that can be created with the natural products. Which country is natural right now? I don't think there are too many that I can think of. Either if the rich means losing your natural impulses, and our definitions of rich are also flawed because we measure rich by higher GDP. We do not measure GDP. We do not measure rich by the fulfillment of life that people have. We measure rich by the power people have to kill or to control. We do not have it reflect the harmony or the viability of a country or the ability to maintain its resources. But let me just come back.
Come back. Because I want to really hone in on that point. I want to understand what a nation could save percentage wise.
Trillions.
No, but a percentage. Give me a
18%. America's expenditure on healthcare is 18%. Even if you saved 5% from that, you know how much money that is?
Right.
18% of an economy that is the largest economy of the world with so much
18%. What are you saying? So, sorry, you're saying 18% of US GDP is spent on healthcare services.
yes, and the returns and the
Wow.
US is not even in the top 10% of the countries with the best mortality and morbidity, with the best healthcare indicators. 18%. So if you measure by the GDP, the US GDP, I think it's around 35 or 36 trillion, right? So depends on what, if you use by PPP criteria, but it's definitely above 30. Depends on IMF, depends on
So
which,
we
right?
don't need to quibble about that. I just
35 million,
um,
18%. That's
18%.
7 trillion a year.
Right, right,
6 to 7 trillion. Can you save us 2 trillion? The country is losing 1 trillion, 1.5 trillion every year, 2 trillion a year. The deficit is taken care of. I should be called by the White House as a consultant.
Yeah, yeah, but I think I think you're thinking they would call you as a economics consultant, but I think they'll call you as a medical
No,
consultant.
common sense. I don't look. This is common sense. This is anybody with common sense knows. If you're spending almost 20% of your entire income on your health and you're not even in the top 10 of the world, something is wrong with the picture. There is something grossly wrong with the picture. We have 100 million people in this country with liver disease. They're going to have cirrhosis. How are you going to take care of it? 100 million, one fourth of this population.
Wow.
With we have serious issues. We cannot continue along this path anymore, and no one will say it. The politicians don't understand. The healthcare administrators, the big thinkers are totally biased, skewed towards only one paradigm of health. We need to get out of this paradigm of health that is controlled by, I call them the nutra feudals. This is the new feudalism. We have the techno feudals, 5, 6 countries that are bigger, each is bigger than most of the countries in the world if you count their GDP. Same way, we have nutra-feudals, people who control the lifeline, pun intended, of our food, of our vaccines, of our medicines, and they lobby and they control how policies are framed. How do you get out of it? Any politician worth his salt will not be able to survive with trillions of dollars being spent. How do you fix it? So it's a complex thing. I think it has to start with individuals growing awake, awakening to this issue, and then coming together and trying to bring true science into this and creating. I'm not a new age guy kind of person. We understand we are in a situation where we're going to have processed food. How do we reduce our dependence on them, and how do we create a proper true health for the nation, truly nourish the nation, and by doing so save money for the nation so it can take better care of its citizens? That's all I'm saying. All right, I'll pass
Dr.
it on to
M,
you.
Dr. M, we'll finish off. We'll finish off with you. I've asked you to be truthful, and you've been truthful, and it's not a rosy picture in many ways. So, talk to us as a final few comments at the end of the show. Talk to us about some of the good things that you can see happening, not just at the individual level, but at the macro level. Talk to us about some of the good things that you can see in terms of food production, distribution, consumption. There must be some positive things that are happening in the country too.
Yeah, yeah, there are positive things, that's for sure. We can't continue this path of just utter and sheer doom to our lives, to the planet, to the human population everywhere. There's a lot of regenerative farming going on, provided that we have, the cooperation of people who are, who have monies and funds. It's really a grassroots thing. It's a lot of grassroots that are really making this whole thing grow, literally. The the people that are involved, their hearts are in it. There's a lot of soil that has been, just turned over. I mean, it really has to be turned over completely because there's been such chemical bombardment, throughout the land here. And so to really regenerate, you have to use the genius of the soil organisms, and the little, the smallest creatures, the larger creatures, and so forth. We have to feed our animals properly, and so that is underway. There are a lot of movements to support all these things. So people are doing it, and they're kind of doing it in their own, sections and segments, and then they're selling to each other and so on. So ideas are being generated. The younger generations being taught about these things. The appeal to the youth is really important because it's their world. I mean, we're all starting to move on this panel anyway. But as we age and so on, we're not going to be able to take care of those matters, which are now again in the hands of the younger generation. So there are things happening here and worldwide, and there is international communication amongst these who are really into these revolutions. And I don't mean the green revolution. That's kind of that's a total misnomer. I mean, it's being used in the wrong way. Vandana Shiva in India, she is a maverick, a powerhouse who will tell you, or you can learn about what she says anywhere on the so-called green revolution to feed the world. We can't feed the world with all of these super processed so-called foods. She's bringing it back, or she's been working hard for decades on the Indian subcontinent and helping them in Africa and so on in other neighboring countries. They're all picking up on it. We're picking up on it with people here. So yes, there are things happening now, Tej, that are just moving forward. And we can't wait for the politicians. We can't wait for these people who are, making promises and this and that and so forth. We don't. Yeah, what have they done? They have not defended us. They've not defended the health of the individuals, the nations, and so on. And so we have to do our thing. We just cannot wait. Forget all the waiting. It's already underway. Farms are happening, regenerative farms. We call them regenerative farms. They're changing the soil. They're changing what the feed is going on with their animals, their livestock, so that the soil can then, be enriched with proper, the proper excrement of these animals. And the nutrients that have to be added. They have to be natural nutrients, not synthetic nutrients. And it's happening. It really is. So that's the good news.
It's great to see. I'm cutting across you there because we are out of time by about 2 minutes ago. But it's great to see that there are positive things happening. But it's also wonderful that you are both willing to speak truth and talk about these problems in great detail, in a way that can be understood at every level, at the technical level, at the lay level, at the common sense level, at the medical level. I thank both of you for sharing your thoughts and your wisdom and your intellect with us this evening. Until next time, I say goodbye.